Alright, I'm going to read from the Private Oral Exam Guide. I'll be in Chapter 5, Cross-Country Flight Planning, on page 5-41. I'm going to start on number 29, what is Class D airspace? Generally, that airspace from the surface to 2,500 feet above the airport elevation charted in MSL, surrounding those airports that have an operational control tower. The configuration of each Class D airspace area is individually tailored, and when instrument procedures are published, the airspace will normally be designed to contain those procedures. Number 30. When operating an aircraft through Class D airspace or to an airport within Class D airspace, what requirement must be met? Each person must establish two-way radio communication with the ATC facility, providing air traffic services prior to entering the airspace, and thereafter maintain those communications while within that airspace. Number 31. When departing a satellite airport within an operative control tower located within Class D airspace, what requirement must be met? Each person must establish and maintain two-way radio communications with the ATC facility having jurisdiction over the Class D airspace area as soon as practical after departing. 32. Is an ATC clearance required if flight operations are conducted through a Class D arrival extension area? Arrival extensions for instrument approach procedures may be Class D or Class E airspace. As a general rule, if all extensions are 2 miles or less, they remain part of a Class D surface area, blue segmented line. However, if any one extension is greater than 2 miles, all the extensions become Class E. Class E airspace areas that serve as extension magenta segmented line to Class B, Class C, and Class D surface areas provide controlled airspace to contain standard instrument approach procedures without imposing a communication requirement on pilots operating under VFR. Number 33. What minimum weather conditions are required when conducting VFR flight operations within Class D airspace? VFR flight operations within Class D airspace require 3 statute miles visibility and cloud clearances of at least 500 feet below, 1,000 feet above, and 2,000 feet horizontal to clouds. 34. How is Class D airspace depicted on navigational charts? Class D airspace areas are depicted on sectional and terminal charts with blue segmented lines, and on IFR en route lows with a box D. Number 35. What type of air traffic control services are provided when operating within Class D airspace? No separation services are provided to VFR aircraft. When meteorological conditions permit, regardless of the type of flight plan or whether or not under the control of a radar facility, the pilot is responsible to see and avoid other traffic, terrain, and obstacles. A controller on a workload permitting basis will provide radar traffic information, safety alerts, and traffic information for sequencing purposes. 36. What is the maximum speed an aircraft may be operated within Class D airspace? Unless authorized or required by ATC, no person may operate an aircraft at or below 2,500 feet above the surface within 4 nautical miles of the primary airport of a Class D airspace area at an indicated airspeed of more than 230 miles per hour. 37. When a control tower located at an airport within Class D airspace ceases operation for the day, what happens to the lower limit of the control airspace? During the hours the tower is not in operation, Class E surface area rules, or a combination of Class E rules down to 700 feet AGL and Class G rules to the surface, will become applicable. Check airport facility directory for specifics. 38. Will all airports with an operating control tower always have Class D airspace surrounding them? No. Some airports do not have the required weather reporting capability necessary for surface-based controlled airspace. The control airspace over these airports normally begins at 700 feet or 1,200 feet AGL and can be determined from visual aeronautical charts. So that was, will all airports with an operating control tower always have Class D airspace surrounding them? Number 39. What is the definition of Class E controlled airspace? Generally, if the airspace is not Class A, B, C, or Class D, it is controlled airspace, and it is Class E airspace. State several examples of Class E airspace. A surface area designated for an airport and configured to contain all instrument approaches. B. An extension to a surface area. There are Class E airspace areas that serve as extensions to B, C, and Class D surface areas designated for an airport. Such airspace provides controlled airspace to contain standard instrument approach procedures without imposing a communication requirement on pilots operating under VFR. C. Airspace used for transition. Class E airspace begins at either 700 feet or 1200 feet AGL, used to transition to from the terminal en route environment. En route domestic areas. Class E airspace areas extend upward from a specified altitude and provide controlled airspace in those areas where there is a requirement to provide IFR en route ATC services, but the Federal Airways system is inadequate. Federal Airways. The Federal Airways are within Class E airspace areas and, unless otherwise specified, extend upward from 1,200 feet to, but not including 18,000 feet MSL. It includes the airspace within parallel boundary lines 4 miles each side of the center line. Oh. Offshore airspace area. Class E airspace that extends upward from a specified altitude, but not including 18,000 feet MSL. These areas provide controlled airspace beyond 12 miles from the coast of the United States in those areas where there is a requirement to provide IFR en route ATC services. G. Unless designated at a lower altitude, Class E airspace begins at 14,000 feet, 14,500 feet MSL to, but not including 18,000 feet MSL, overlying the 48 contiguous states, including the waters within 12 miles from the coast of the 48 contiguous states, the District of Columbia, Alaska, including the waters within 12 miles from the coast of Alaska, and airspace above flight level 600, excluding specified areas in Alaska. Alright, we'll hold off right there. That was pretty much Class D and E. Yeah, it was Class D and E. Alright, that's Chapter 5, Cross Country Flight Planning. That was 5-44.